This car is known as a Heavy 12, Austrian Heavy 12. And this car really goes back to the 14-18 war. It's amazing how the shape of motor cars has changed. These old things will go on forever. They'll never die, these old cars.
It's said that mobility is the essence of modern life. Moving around is a very important part of our day-to-day, and we've enjoyed a love affair with the car for over 100 years. This road vehicle plays a very important part in the Capurro's story, but it's a journey at sea where we start.
The first Capurros that came to Gibraltar came in the early 1800s. Like many Gibraltarian families, they arrived from the northern port of Italy, Genova.
The history of AM Capurro and Sons Limited goes back to 1876, when my great-grandfather Arturo Maria started it and founded the business in 1876. I believe it was actually the year that Queen Victoria was made the Empress of India.
Initially located in Main Street, our main activity was forwarding, shipping and the insurance business. 6
or so years later, a group of Gibraltar businessmen got together and formed the Gibraltar Chamber of Commerce. Arturo Maria, with his AM Capurro and Sons Limited, was one of the founder members of the Gibraltar Chamber of Commerce, which is still in existence today. It has a long history ourselves, and we've been members all the way through. His two children then came into the business during the 1900s, early 1900s. There was Arthur and Robert, referred to as Bobby, who was my grandfather. While Bobby was more involved with army activity, working up to being Lieutenant Colonel of the then Gibraltar Defence Force. His brother Arturo was probably more involved with the business, but they very much both had the same interests at heart, and both ran the business in a similar way with a similar philosophy. That philosophy, in fact, is probably what's been passed on year by year, generation by generation. What gets passed on, I think, is the philosophy of how to do business. It was certainly taught to my father, and my father certainly tried to pass that on to all of us.
You had to take action yourself. I didn't believe in religious mysteries, things like God. People pray, God help me. God's not going to help you. The English say God only helps those that help themselves. And it was really putting a dream into practice. I've been very lucky because all the things I've done in life were part of my hobbies, part of my being, things I liked, cars, boats. And today I'm still playing with old cars. I can't play with boats, I've lost my balance.
Bear in mind that in the late 1800s, there weren't any cars to insure yet. Capurro's insurance is for some reason associated with insurance for cars, Well, when we started, there wasn't a car to insure yet. It hadn't turned up yet. So it was very much cargo, shipping, to do with ships, the insurance connection. That relationship, that activity, insurance activity, developed into a relationship with Royal Exchange, which started in 1902. Very, very, very close relationship, and that went on for 100 years to 2002. There aren't many businesses in Gibraltar who can say that they've worked with one principal for 100 years.
It was in the early 1920s that Capurro decided to diversify the business, and we started our motor business with getting the representation of the Ford Motor Company in 1925. In those days, it was the beginning of the mass production automobile industry, so Ford only produced their cars in America. Those cars were shipped to the port of Cádiz, and they were shipped in knockdown units, and it was an operation in Cádiz that would build the cars and bring them down to Gibraltar.
The Ford were rather big cars for Gib, you know, the Model A, the Model B, the V8, the Road. They didn't make any small cars. So Capurro started selling baby Austins and Austin 10s, and Ford didn't like it.
Early 1930s, it's when we start our long-term relationship with the Austin Motor Company that still lasts today as a result of still having Jaguar Land Rover. Unfortunately, due to the Second World War, like most businesses in Gibraltar, we were affected by the war, and there was a mass evacuation. There was the evacuation of Gibraltar, so the car side of the business suffered as a result of it, but the forwarding side of the business and the insurance side of the business kept busy during those years. Back then, our great-grandfather, A.M. Capurro, and his two sons, Arthur and Bobby, they stayed in Gibraltar during the war. My grandfather, Arthur, lived in Campamento, and his brother, Bobby, he was quite involved with the army.
During the war, he had a special pass to be able to pass through the frontier. In those days, apparently, it was unheard of. There was almost a closed border, but he had to pass through the frontier, and he used to smuggle people out of Spain and into Gibraltar, which always left me quite amazed. But he told me who these people were. They're downed airmen who had crashed their planes in France and actually been smuggled out of France into Spain, through neutral Spain and into Gibraltar. And his part of it was smuggling these people, these RAF people, through the border into Gibraltar. I understand that, for example, the site that we now have in Line Wall Road was the fact that we were able to acquire was partly due to his involvement with the military, and I believe also the fact that we ended up owning the freehold on it was due to his involvement and his relationship with the military.
And my father, the colonel, was very good at public relations. In fact, you've got the garage because the garage was given to him for his service work, for his war service. And it was bought for the price of the cheapest car on the market today, £25,000, imagine.
And basically, we were able to continue developing the business, both in insurance and the car business. And in those years, in the next decade, the 1950s, 1960s, in the car business, we managed to secure an agreement with the Austin Motor Company in those days. And we had sales offices in American bases, in Spain, both Rota and Morón. So whilst in Gibraltar we had our local sales, we also were able to export cars to America through the military sales, the American military sales. So in those days, both from an insurance perspective in the motor business, things were thriving.
Very essential part of the history of the business when the frontier closed, forced them to rethink what they were doing and how they're doing it, and decided that, okay, we're going to go off and do something different. My father enjoyed boats and went boating in his leisure time, and with that leisure activity, then he decided, okay, we're going to make a business out of that, and went off to form H. Shepherd & Co., Shepherd's Marina, which was formed in the late 1960s with the closure of the border.
And in those days, both my father, John, and my uncle, Hector, and Roberto, they had to diversify, they had to find a solution to the situation. So we established Shepherd's Marina, which was in my opinion, it was a very wise way of resolving the border issue, because if we couldn't travel by car to Spain, by building the marina, you could get quite a lot of clients from Spain and further afield in the Mediterranean to use our services, and I think that was a very clever move back then.
Shepherd's Marina is now Ocean Village.
That's right. That's right.
In fact, where the casino is, we used to berth boats on the north side of the pier, the Chesterfield Pier. Why was it called the Chesterfield Pier? Because it was crooked, like the spire and the church in Chesterfield in England.
From a business perspective, or from a family business perspective, I think we were very fortunate, or they were very fortunate, that they were three cousins. They had, in different ways, but they all were very passionate about the business, and they complemented each other. You had the more aggressive, you had the more diplomat, and you had. So I think it's like for any business, it's important to that you share same values, but that you're different. That's what makes a business thrive.
My father passed the baton on to his children, basically by bringing the ones who were interested in working in the business into the business, and really no different to any other trainee coming into the business. There's no niceties of you're the son of the boss. It didn't happen at all. It really was quite tough. I remember being brought in. My first job coming back from the school was washing cars in the car business, and I literally had to prepare the cars that arrived for sale, the new cars arriving for sale. I had to de-wax them and clean them for the clients. And if I got something wrong, God help me, there really was a price to pay. But on the whole, I've got to say, I think I washed cars rather well. I did a rather good job of it. Great training.
My first day at work, I had the impression that I was going to work in an office. Little did I know that when I came nice and smart to work, my father basically told me to go and see the workshop manager and fit my overall. That's something that I had to do. I worked in the workshop and preparing cars and parts for at least a couple of years, and I think the logic was obviously to learn the business in all the areas of the business, which I think is a good foundation for your future years. representing brands like Jaguar Land Rover, Mitsubishi, or Mercedes-Benz at Jedi Motors, you're dealing with very demanding manufacturers because they are in the premium segment. Not only does it apply in the showroom, but also in the after sales area, we have to meet certain minimum standards, which we do. So the coloring, the tidiness of the place has to be perfect in order to meet the standards of the manufacturer. Basically, the upper garage was built just after the war. Initially, our workshops were down below, which today is a car parking facility.
Capurros have been here at this site since, we originally started working here before World War II. During World War II, it was given back to the MOD for their usage. They had to vacate it. And after the war, it was given back to us, and that's when we developed what is now the floor we're now standing on. Originally, it was just the basement level, which is now the parking. We then developed this in the 1950s.
Basically, it's the team that handle all custom inquiries. We organize shipments to final destination. So basically, this is where we conduct the business.
We sell a lot of vehicles to a very wide customer base within the European Union. We are very, very active in print advertising. We're very active in online advertising, which essentially creates huge visibility for the company. Consequently, we're inundated with inquiries from all over the place. And our sales team, which is sort of sitting behind me, churn out quotations, confirm orders. And being a factory-appointed tourist and diplomatic supplier to the European Union, obviously we have a lot of business coming our way purely because of that.
That's how the insurance business has developed through time. It's gone from a one-man within AM Capurro and Sons Limited to being a separate company, separately incorporated company, licensed and regulated by the Financial Services Commission, which was a big development that Gibraltar Financial Services went through back in history, and now employing, as I say, 20 people plus a couple of trainees.
So this is our original workshop down below, before we built this floor, the upper floor. And here we used to have a workshop for Ford cars, which is going back to the 1920s.
The first car dealership that you
This is the first brand we represented in Gibraltar, yeah.
The old Spanish city walls, and a very old Spanish tower that formed part of the original city walls. This tower, we actually get visitors coming in on heritage history walks that are interested in seeing this. So happy to share Gibraltar's heritage with people.
And it's here, it's part of the fabric of
It's an essential part of our business, isn't it? Here we have one of the basic parts of our business, which is the garage parking in the basement. And we have cars parked amongst Gibraltar's history.
I work for AM Capurro now for about 33 years. In fact, I think I'm the oldest boy around now, the old boy of the company. At present, I'm in Jeddah, but I first started at AM Capurro and Sons, which is part of the same group. I was then employed by John Capurro, Arturo's father, who, in my opinion, was a gentleman of the tallest order, a man who never had a bad word to say, and you rarely heard raise his voice around the company to anybody at all. He was a really nice guy, and also a friend and my boss.
Since 1951, one of the first distributorships that were given in Europe. And back in 2001, when we established the dedicated facilities here at Jeddah Motors in Devil's Tower Road, it was together in partnership with Mercedes-Benz.
Even though 138 years have gone by, the basic business model continues, which is our insurance and motor business.
a company where it is driven by the entrepreneurial and dynamic spirit of its shareholders and directors and the people on the floor, the reality is that a company, to be able to fully blossom into a powerhouse of economic activity, must be situated in an environment where entrepreneurship can flourish, so that the government must always establish the regulatory and legal framework which doesn't stifle businesses but properly regulates it. And I think the fact that, once again, a company that may have humble origins originally can blossom into a group of companies that, for example, with the example of Capurro in Gibraltar, is synonymous with a car dealership, is saying something about Gibraltar and the framework that the government does put in place to enable businesses to prosper.
It's important to note the importance that obviously our forefathers have had in the business. If it wouldn't have been for their dedication to the business, we wouldn't be here today. And there have been good times and there have been tough times. I think that whether it was the First World War, the Second World War, or the closure of the border, there must have been big challenges and commitment they have towards the business. And it's thanks to that commitment and that passion for the business that it's what gives us the strength and the motivation to carry on the business, and hopefully future generations will be able to absorb that.
I think that each generation has taken what was given to them and run with it. And really, essentially, that's what's given the business the longevity as well. The fact that each generation has been able to develop it and produce something more than. I see it personally as my own responsibility to pass on what's been given to me. I feel very honoured to have been given this business. Very much is in my way of working the business. It's my responsibility to look after it, work it and look after it. By all means, earn some money while you're doing it, but essentially to be able to pass it on to the next generation. Hopefully the next generation will be there to be able to pass it. Hopefully they'll be interested to be able to run it.
The Capurros have played a significant role in a local business community which has proved resilient to external pressures and capable of sustained growth. Their operation has evolved as our relationship with the car has evolved and as our attitudes to risk and insurance have evolved. Join us next week when we take a look at another business with a rich history of learning from the past to carve a prosperous future.